So just a testimony.
Yeah, it'll be
Okay.
good. It'll be good. It'll be good. Be good. Give a little minute for everybody to come on. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. See, this is where they're coming on now. I know it's been a couple of days. I've been real busy, but glad to see you come on. I see Edwin Jones come on, a couple other people. Travis Copeland, good to hear from you. Glad to have you guys on. Yep, glad to have you guys on tonight. Want to talk a little bit about empowerment, and this will be a short scope tonight as we get started. Actually, out of town at a conference, international conference. It's actually a North American Roundtable, and I have a newfound brother here today with me. Hey, it's my dad
Hey.
on. Hey, Dr. Dwight Riddick, that's my dad. He's scoping now every morning at 8 a.m. If you haven't heard it yet, please go ahead and do that at Dr. Dwight Riddick. That's it. Yeah, I appreciate that, Pastor Will. And I want to just kind of talk about what exposure does and how exposure can be empowering for you. But I wanted to introduce you to Sergey. He's coming just to kind of give his
Alright,
testimony
guys.
for a moment. Sergey, go ahead.
All right. Well, my name is Sergey. I'm originally from Russia. 28 years old, and I grew up without a dad. Never really had a father figure in my life. So my grandmother, my mom my grandmother, my great grandmother raised me up, and at the age of 12, my grandmother passed away, and so I ended up going to an orphanage, where, I mean, it's not the best life, but it's better than being on the street. So, hey, I mean, had to do what I had to do, and didn't really have too much choice. And that's where I met a pastor from United States, who came and who wanted to foster a child from an orphanage. And for whatever reason, they told him that I was a good kid, and all that stuff. So he came and asked me if I wanted to stay with him, and I'm like, sure, why not? I don't have much to lose here. So I decided to go in and check it out, see what's going on, and so that's when I heard the gospel from him. He shared the gospel with me, talked about the Jesus film that a lot of people have seen before. I've seen it before, but there was nothing really personal, at that time to me. It was just a nice film. But then he shared that I could have a personal relationship with Christ, that he loves me, he died for me, and he wants the best for me, and he wants to be my father. And that's exactly what I was missing. I was missing that father figure in my life, and I like, without a hesitation, I said yes. I want to pray, the prayer, and accept Christ as my Lord and Savior, and that's my life has never been the same ever since then. And now I'm here in the United States, and I mean, I couldn't have imagined a better life, and that's where God has me right now, and see what He's got for me in the future. So thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. If you could give Sergey a few hearts, just for him kind of taking some time out. He's actually at work right now, but he took some time out to share with us. And I wanted to really just kind of give an example of the power of exposure. I was just kind of talking with Sergey earlier, and he was telling me that he heard the gospel and it changed his life. So one, I want to kind of just encourage every person who's on the wall, who's ministering, serving, giving testimonies. Make sure that you never devalue the power of your words. Mm-hmm. Exposure changes things, and that's really why I wanted to talk to him, because before I got out of the vehicle we were riding in, he encouraged me. He said, "Listen, no matter what you do, don't think that your words are not valuable." Mm-hmm. Exposure changes things. Exposure grows people, and in this day and time, we want to make sure that we don't miss the moment to expose people to Christ.
Exactly.
So that's the first lesson. Make sure that we expose people to Christ. The second lesson tonight is really just understanding how exposure helps you. That when you are exposed to new or different, doesn't always mean you have to do it. Doesn't always mean you have to embrace it. But what does happen is it opens up ideas. It gives you perspective and vantage points that are different. And sometimes it's in how we phrase or present the gospel. Mm-hmm. My dad used to say all the time when I was doing youth ministry, sometimes you just have to take old things and repackage it. And sometimes, the repackaging takes some exposure. And so tonight as you get ready to kind of lay down and call it a night for many of you, think about how you can be exposed. A couple things. One, invest in you. Attend conferences, read books, have conversations with people who may be in the place that you're already going to. Another way that you can find exposure is trying to cross lines, engage with different cultures, different race, different places, different vocations. And sometimes you'll discover that what's happening in other places may very well be relevant where you are. Thirdly, can't close without giving this disclaimer, and that is wise man in Ecclesiastes says, with much wisdom comes much sorrow. And I do think that there are times that after you've been exposed and you see and hear, experience things, that there are moments that you may be frustrated about where you are. Look, the key to exposure is you don't have to compare where you are to what you see and to what's happening. You want to always value where you are, value who's around, value what's taking place, and then understand that God exposes us because of where he's taken us. It's a process. You don't always get there quickly. You may not always understand why you're there, but just understand that exposure has a way of bringing great empowerment. I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. Listen, I'll be back on tomorrow. My dad will be on at 8 a.m. And I know many of you are also posting and casting and scoping. So make sure that we use all of this media to carry out that great commission. Now we are able to go ye therefore into all of the world. Thank you guys. Have a great night. Be blessed.
Peace.